Welcome to New Orleans. Go marching in. Oh, when the saints go marching in. Sing along. I want to be in that number. Oh, sorry.
At a crescent-shaped bend in the Mississippi River, 110 miles from the Gulf of Mexico, is the city of New Orleans, an extraordinary melting pot with a long and diverse history.
I want to be in that number. Oh, when the saints go marching in.
Known for its food, its music, and its architecture, more than anywhere in America, New Orleans tells a complex story of colonialism, European influence, and African American history. But for all its historic turmoil, New Orleans' diversity has always thrived. In a fusion of cultures, it keeps the past alive while reveling in the present.
I'm Laura Clavery. I'm editor of the official tourism website for New Orleans. New Orleans is a real melting pot. We have a heritage of French, Spanish, African American, Caribbean, and we all work very well together. We revel in one another's traditions. We treasure one another's foods and our cultures. This is a city that is very blended. We're certainly not a cookie-cutter city, and we know that. We treasure our old traditions. One of the things that really attracted me to New Orleans many years ago was this whole melting pot. We are a gumbo culture. We're a little bit of the best of everything.
Many New Orleans scholars have wondered, how did this melting pot survive its surroundings? New Orleans sits in a marshy basin, averaging just 6 feet above sea level. It is regularly pounded by hurricanes, with annual rainfalls topping off at 100 inches. To manage the constant deluge, New Orleans has literally shored itself up, with 130 miles of levees and more canals and pumping stations than even Venice, Italy. You'll find few basements in New Orleans, and more notably, the dead must be buried above ground in Gothic cemeteries with ornate mausoleums dating back 4 centuries. Many of New Orleans' historic dead were carried off in the gruesome plagues which regularly decimated the city's population and forever changed its culture.
I'm John Bullard. I'm the director of the New Orleans Museum of Art. I came here in 1973 from the National Gallery in Washington, D.C. I think the physical environment of New Orleans, its weather, the heat and the humidity, the hurricanes, the fact that we're below sea level, there's always a chance of flooding, had a big effect, I think, on people's attitude toward life, that enjoying life, the physical pleasures of life, now rather than waiting and putting it off.
Far more than most contemporary American cities, New Orleans' melting pot culture revolves around food. In a city of only 500,000 people, New Orleans has over 3,800 restaurants.
My name is Frank Brigtsen, and I'm the owner and chef of Brigtsen's Restaurant right here in uptown New Orleans. I was born in New Orleans, about a mile from here, actually, and have been here all my life. The thing about New Orleans food is that it is much more than just a meal. People in New Orleans are very emotional about food. Food is such a great medium to share with people because it touches people in so many ways. Physically, of course, but emotionally, socially, spiritually. Part of eating is really not to feed the body, but to feed the soul. And you have to feed the soul to restore the spirit and enjoy life. And that's part of what eating in New Orleans is all about.
For the people of New Orleans, meals are eaten with a passion. The ingredients and rituals included speak of this culture's proud history.
It's 80 pounds of boiled crawfish we're having right here. For a good New Orleanian party, this will last for about maybe 5-6 people. A couple hours.
Well, first thing you have to do is just tear off the head. It's kind of disgusting, I guess, but not really because it's so good. So good? And you gotta suck the head. You gotta suck all the guts out of it. Now, people that are good can just pinch the tail, suck it right out, but the rookies actually have to pinch the first layer off. I can do both. So, delicious. You know, when we go up north, they don't have this. They don't have the style, the flavor.
Cayenne pepper, my red pepper.
This food is definitely a part of life. It's a way of life. It brings us all together, and being particularly with the seafood, the crawfish balls, bring in the potatoes, everybody brought something. Somebody brought a bag of corn, somebody brought a bag of potatoes, and we just threw it all in the pot, and it's wonderful.
The fertile delta soil and bayous of the surrounding countryside support New Orleans' diverse cuisines. Around southern Louisiana, harvesting means more than a livelihood to those who choose it. It's a lifestyle that is passed down through generations.
If you talk to a Louisiana shrimper or fisherman, he will tell you that he cannot imagine getting what they call a real job up the road.
Well, I mean, we're a seafood generation, way, way back. And without us being here, it would have never carried on. The younger generations would have never had the opportunity to eat the seafood that we have, because my father used to bring in shrimp by the ice chestfuls when we were little. And so we were raised with it.
It's hard work. You go out early in the morning, throw your nets over, start dragging. Sometimes you have good days, sometimes you have bad, sometimes you have breakdowns.
Anywhere you're going to go in the state of Louisiana, you can find a place to fish. Since I was old enough to walk, I guess I've been fishing. I'm 83 years old, and I'm still fishing. And I love it. I can almost tell you if the weather's right to fish. We lived on the water, I call it, on a levee. They call it Catahoula by Lake Salvador. We stayed there and fished crab, but we was raised like that. Us we was raised cleaning fish, washing dishes, making bread.
It's the bayou state, surrounded by water. No matter what's in the Louisiana you're going, they're gonna have bayous like this. The average person that was really raised there, did this here at some point in time. Stuck with it. As they growed up, some forgot about it, But me, I can't forget. Fishing, I love this here. I comes out to the escape to get a peace of mind. Besides, trying to catch me something nice too. Go in the skillet, put it in the grease. But it's like a second livelihood. You know, I was raised up doing this.
The fruit and vegetable vendors we have here in the city, whether it's a roadside truck or a roadside stand, brings us closer to the source of our food. I think one of the great things about Creole cuisine is that it has a magical effect on people. It is a wonderful tool for bringing people together.
People come and they want Creoles. And the Creoles, of course, the definition of a Creole is anything grown in Louisiana. You knew that, huh? Any tomato grown in Louisiana is a Creole. And that's where you get the definition. But people swear they can tell what patch they came out of almost.
New Orleans architecture is unlike any in America. If these walls could talk, they'd tell a fascinating story of an exotic melting pot that's kept its ties to the past.
I don't consider New Orleans a truly southern city. Yes, we are located geographically in the South, and yes, most of us have a little bit of a southern accent. But we really consider ourselves more European. It's unique because in New Orleans we treasure the old. Many years ago, in say the 50s or 60s, when other cities were tearing down their old buildings and building skyscrapers, New Orleans actively preserved their old buildings.
Over 40,000 New Orleans buildings are listed on the National Register of Historic Landmarks. Officially founded in 1718, New Orleans grew as an opulent French colonial port city, linking Europe, the Caribbean, and the West Indies to the growing southern plantation economy. These links to the outside world gave the city an international flair and a free spirit. But for all its celebrated debauchery, the French Quarter, once known as the Beucke, was built according to plan.
In 1720, a French engineer laid out the plan according to the French military plan. That is the exact same grid that we have today in our Beucke. And that determined the urban plan going upriver, downriver, and following the bayou north towards the lake. The French, of course, were determined to build a beautiful city, like they had back home. The French had sort of a restrained approach to their architecture. They liked their architecture to be simple and modest to a degree, not ostentatious. So you would go through the opening from the sidewalk to the back of the building and where the courtyard would be, and there might be a gallery in the back, but nothing would suggest that from the front on the street. And as more and more Americans poured into the city after the Louisiana Purchase, which was in 1803, they were building these large mansions on big lots. And the French thought they were very, very ostentatious and sort of looked down their noses at this architecture, which ended up being quite beautiful because, of course, there was an influence from the French anyway.
But much of what we recognize as French Quarter architecture, including the classic wrought iron balcony, is in fact Spanish, thanks to the French and Indian War. Between 1762 and 1800, Spanish colonials held the city. During that short time, they had to rebuild it twice. In 1788 and 1794, massive fires almost consumed New Orleans, razing over 1,000 buildings to ashes. But like the city's resiliency in the face of disease and hurricanes, its architectural melting pot came from overcoming catastrophe. After the Louisiana Purchase in 1803, the city officially became American. That did not mean it took to American ways. More than any U.S. city, New Orleans resisted an American identity.
The Creoles looked upon themselves as a very special people, as opposed to the Americans, as they were called. On one side of the city, you had the Creoles living in the French Quarter, and across Canal Street, you had what was called the Americans, and those were people that were not of European descent necessarily, and looked on as a different culture. And Canal Street, being the main street of New Orleans, was sort of the dividing ground. And in actuality, what we call the median, the middle of the street, came to be called the neutral ground, because that's where these cultures would meet. And to this day in New Orleans, the medians of our streets we call neutral grounds.
The Creole cultural influence is felt in almost every aspect of New Orleans life. Astoundingly, it wasn't until 1864 that English became the city's official language, and much of the slang here is French. But New Orleans' nickname as Crescent City comes from its American takeover and expansion along the Mississippi River.
As Americans moved west, the only transportation they had, north and south, was the Mississippi River.
Captain Robert Mitchell here, steamboat captain aboard the steamboat Natchez. This boat is the fastest steamboat on the river. I've been doing this now for about 29 and a half years. It's a great job and great adventure. For me, just knowing that I sailed upon the mighty Mississippi. This river is so mighty. And we, as New Orleanians, we take it for granted. A lot of New Orleanians, they are very interested in the culture of New Orleans, and they love the steamboat.
Go back after. Back after.
It brings back what happened many, many years ago when cotton came to Harlem, so to speak, when the steamboat would bring down all of the different supplies from all over the country, come down on steamboats with the cotton bales.
The steamboat was a revolution for trade and transportation. It could travel faster than anything else on water. By the mid-1800s, some 1,200 steamboats carrying cargo, from cotton to yams, were the workhorses of the Mississippi River. New Orleans was a major hub, a driving force of commerce, as it remains today.
The culture in this area always, as long as I can remember, the steamboat era, will come down the river, steamboats, side wheelers as well as stern wheelers, that brought in all the supplies from all the upper river areas, from different towns along the Mississippi. And it gives you a feeling that New Orleans is a city all of its own. There's no place like it. The big, easy.
Historically, the Big Easy became one of the most diverse, artistic capitals in America, a legacy born from its melting pot of cosmopolitan influences, and an abundance of wealthy patrons with cultured tastes.
The lifestyle, a kind of Caribbean, South Mediterranean lifestyle, which is very attractive to visitors and has been a big magnet for artists in the last 200 years. New Orleans was a major port, a big city in the South in the 19th century, and attracted a lot of artists who came here itinerant either from Europe or the northeastern United States, who came down here to paint planters and French Creole merchants in the French Quarter. And so there's always been an artistic center here in New Orleans.
But the most celebrated artistic form in New Orleans is music. Here, you can find every kind of live music, from blues to Cajun Zydeco, each contributing its own influences and musical styles. New Orleans has well over 100 music clubs and countless street musicians who keep the city's treasured musical heritage alive.
This is what I do, you know, like basically I love this work. This is what I do. I'm a street entertainer as opposed to a street musician. I entertain. I'm Rashid Akbar. I'm known as Sheikh Rashid. New Orleans is jazz, and that makes New Orleans America, because jazz is the only true art form of America. So New Orleans is very America, you know? I mean, you got Louis Armstrong. What more can you say after that? Thank you, sir. Just want to let you know before you get to the door. The statement is etched in stone here as far as the musical icon to America. This is where the birthplace is. So, you know, when you think New Orleans, if you don't think jazz, then you're not thinking New Orleans, because that's what it is known for.
New Orleans jazz came from a different part of the melting pot story: slavery. From its beginnings, the port of New Orleans played a vital role in the American slave trade. Today's Jackson Square began its history as Congo Square, so called for the 100,000 African and West Indian slaves sold across its infamous and highly prosperous auction block. From here, men, women, and children were sent to plantations across the South. Remarkably, from this sinister chapter in the city's past came a vibrant and entirely new musical legacy.
They used to bring the slaves out on the weekend and allow them to entertain. You know, they would beat their chains, they would beat the drums, and it turned out to be a form of entertainment and self-expression, freedom for them. This is a connection with street entertainers. You know, that tradition never stopped after the slavery thing was abolished, and it just grew into a New Orleans fixture. You know what I mean. They get together and they say, well, okay, let's play. And they were, you know, formulating this thing called jazz, a traditional music, and it had another bounce to it, you know, as opposed to the European sound, and it just caught fire. And that is the sound that gave New Orleans its name, you know, the birthplace of jazz.
New Orleans' landmark jazz clubs, like Preservation Hall in the heart of the French Quarter, show how jazz became entrenched, a city institution. But freeform street music is another part of the musical melting pot here, and a huge part of the city's lure.
They think music, and that's what New Orleans says, you know, when people hear that name, I am music. And it's a blessing for me to be a part of that. Especially when I get with a good crowd, I think about how much I really enjoy this. You know, there's some crowds that can really give you a vibration about being a New Orleans musician and make you really feel your worth for being out here. And a lot of the natives also come up, you know, and say, man, I live here. You know, I just want you to know we're glad you're here. They are well pleased when they walk away, you know, and that does me a great joy to say that I'm a New Orleans street entertainer. I once was lost, but now I'm found. I was blind, but now I see. Well, through many a danger, told and snatched.
New Orleans' fusion of cultures reflects its extraordinary history. From its colonial heritage, European and Caribbean influences, to its Cajun settlers and the slave trade, it's an American melting pot like no other. And whether this vibrant port city that sits below sea level is experienced through its food, music, or architecture, New Orleans' unique identity is unmistakable and hard to resist.